Hello everyone, this video is brought to you by the Seventh Monk. This is Lecture 6 of Unit 3 Determination of Income and Employment. In this lecture, we will be doing inflation and deflation in detail. So let's start with inflation, which is also called axis demand or inflationary gap. Alright, so this axis demand exists when the planned aggregate demand in the economy is greater than the planned aggregate supply. At full employment equilibrium, then there exists a gap between aggregate demand, which is at a higher level, and aggregate supply, which is at a lower level, and that gap is technically termed as inflationary gap or inflation. Okay, so whenever your planned aggregate demand is at a higher level, then planned aggregate supply at full employment equilibrium, then there will be excess demand in the economy. Now let's understand it through a diagram. Okay, so over here you can see that this is your aggregate supply curve, right? It is up to here only because the resources in the economy are limited, and beyond that limitation we cannot go. So after this, the resources are, the aggregate supply curve is perfectly inelastic, showing that resources cannot increase further, right? Because the resources of the economy are fully utilized, are fully employed. That's why it is full employment equilibrium, as all the resources of the economy are fully and efficiently employed, right? So at this point, whenever the aggregate demand is greater, so you can see that aggregate demand is not at the equivalent level, but it is at the greater level than the aggregate supply, which cannot increase further because it is at the full employment equilibrium. So there is a gap between aggregate demand and aggregate supply, which is over here. And this gap is technically termed as inflationary gap or inflation. Okay, I hope now this is very clear to you. So suppose if that the national income of the country is 1000, it means that the product equal to 1000 has been generated in the economy, right? And suppose if the taxes are 100, so people will be left with 900 as disposable income, and out of that, suppose they are saving 20%, so they will save 180 rupees of because 20% of 900 is 180, then they will be left with 720 rupees for spending on various goods. Now out of this 1000 rupee of product, what will happen, some amount, suppose 360 is used for national defense, for war expenditure, then the available output will be 640. So over here you can see that your aggregate demand is greater, it is 720, but the aggregate supply is just 640. So there is a gap between aggregate demand and aggregate supply, and this gap is called inflation. All right, I hope now this is clear to you. So for your sake of simplicity, always remember that whenever the question relating to access demand is asked, then please don't forget to mention each and every keyword, right? Planned aggregate demand. Don't write simply aggregate demand, right? Planned aggregate demand, okay? So whenever planned aggregate demand of the economy is greater than planned aggregate supply at full employment level of output in the economy, then there is a gap between aggregate demand and aggregate supply, which is technically called inflation. Okay, over here also you can see that this even is over full employment equilibrium. Over here your AD and AS seems to be equal, right? But we have to see everything in the context of full employment equilibrium, not over full employment equilibrium. So always remember, in case of excess demand, there is over full employment equilibrium, right? And at full employment equilibrium, what is happening? Aggregate supply is less and aggregate demand is more. That's why over here there is a gap between aggregate demand, right, which is AD1. This is your aggregate demand, right? This is your aggregate demand, and this is your aggregate supply, and between it there is a gap, and this gap is called inflationary gap or inflation. All right, while drawing the diagram, please be very careful. Draw your aggregate supply curve firstly at the angle of 45 degree, and after that draw it like a straight line to show that after a particular point the resources has been fully utilized. So the supply curve is perfectly inelastic, because it cannot increase further, the supply cannot increase further, since resources of the economy are fully utilized at full employment equilibrium. All right, and carefully draw your aggregate demand curve as well, right? The aggregate demand at full employment equilibrium, as well as the aggregate demand of over full employment equilibrium. Then show how due to excess demand, the aggregate demand is greater, the planned aggregate demand is greater than planned aggregate supply at full employment equilibrium. This is what is actually there in the society, and this is what it should be. All right, that they should be equal to each other. But in the economy, what is happening during inflation? Your aggregate demand is higher than the aggregate supply. That's why inflation exists. Okay, and don't forget to mention your axis, what you are showing on both the axes. So over here, over x-axis, you can write either income or output or employment, anything. And over y-axis, you have to write aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Okay, like this, you can easily draw its curve. Okay, and please remember this ECA, right? You have to mention equilibrium. So equilibrium has been mentioned over here. Curve, the name of all the curve. Don't forget to name all the curves, and then axis. So if you will mention these three things, your answer will be perfect. And after drawing the curve, don't forget to explain the curve in 2 to 3 lines. All right. So how this inflationary pressure is there in the society, try to explain it in terms of the things that you have drawn in the graph. All right. Now let's see what are the reasons for excess demand, why this excess demand exists. The first important reason is increase in money supply. It usually happens due to deficit financing. Now, what is this deficit and what is deficit financing? We will be talking about it in detail in our next unit. For now, just remember that deficit financing means government is printing more notes, right? In order to cope up with the deficit that the economy is facing, right? And what is this deficit? I'll tell you this in the next lecture. Just remember that government is printing more money, so there will be excess money supply in the economy, as a result of which people will have more hold over money, they will have hold over more money. So the demand of the entire economy will be greater than the supply. So aggregate demand of the economy will be greater than aggregate supply, hence inflation will exist. Now, the second reason is increase in investment. Now, due to increasing autonomous investment, production increases, which in turn leads to increase in money supply, which causes excess demand in turn. All right. So, when investment will increase, you are already aware of the forward action of multiplier. There, I told you that how due to increase in investment, income also increases in the economy. All right, due to which consumption increases, which in turn give rise to income. So income goes on increasing due to the forward action of investment multiplier, right? You already know this. So due to this, the income, the money supply in the economy also increases, which in turn give rise to the excess demand in the economy. Then fall in imports. See, whenever we import something from foreign, we have to uh, pay some money, right, to the foreign nations. So our money goes to the other economy, so there is less money in the economy. But when we are not importing, then the money uh, that would have gone to other country due to import remain within our own country, right? That's why there is excess demand in the economy, because the money of the economy is there with the economy itself, hence there is excess money supply in the economy. So fall of imports is one reason. Then the next is rise in exports, right. Whenever we will export more, what will happen? Two things will happen together. One, we will earn more money, so our economy will have excess money supply. And one more thing will happen, the output of our country is going to other countries, so less will be left for our own people to survive. Okay, so there will be less aggregate supply available for the people of our country, hence rise in exports give rise to two problems altogether, right? Available output within the country will fall, and one more thing will happen, and what will be that? The money supply in the economy will increase. Okay, now due to fall in the availability of the good within our country, one more simultaneous effect will happen, that is the price of that commodity will increase. Okay, and then the next reason is reduction in taxes. So if taxes will reduce, people will have more money to spend over goods that they need, so aggregate demand will be greater than the aggregate supply. I hope that the reasons are clear to you. If anything is not clear to you, then please comment down below, right? Now coming to the impacts of excess demand. So excess demand causes price to rise. Now why it causes price to rise? See, as economy is at the full level of employment, so you all are aware that output cannot rise beyond this level since economy is at the full employment equilibrium. All right, it is at the full employment level of output, so aggregate supply cannot rise above this level, but aggregate demand is at the higher level, right? When excess demand is there in the economy. So what will happen? Output and employment cannot change, so the ultimate pressure will be on price, and price tends to rise up as competition among buyers will push the price up. So price will go up automatically. Some people will not demand that good, and automatically your excess demand and access sorry your excess demand will be cured, and aggregate demand in the economy will become equal to aggregate supply, right? And then the next important reason for this is that it brings no change in output and employment, right? So excess demand will bring no change in output and employment as there is full utilization of resources available in the economy. Thus there is full employment, hence excess demand does not lead to increase in the level of employment. Okay, it is just increasing the price. So this is the next impact. And the last impact over here which I have written is that only money income will increase and not the real income. Okay, real income will not increase, only the money income will increase. So I hope that you know the difference between money income and real income. Real income uh, means our purchasing power, right? Real income means that we can buy more goods from our income. It means that our salary is increasing, by which we can buy more goods. And money income means suppose if there is inflation in the economy, right? Then it will seem to us that our income is increasing, but we will realize that the prices of commodities have also increased in relation to that. Earlier, when we were earning 5,000 rupees, at that time also we were able to buy 2 kgs of potato a week, and now when we are earning 10,000, still we can buy only 2 kgs of potatoes a week. All right. So over here you can see that the demand that the person was making are still same, the quantity that he was buying are still same. So it shows that their income has increased, but that is not the real income, that is the money income. Okay, so money income is the income which increases, but still the quantity that they can afford does not increase. Okay, the quantity remains same, it is increasing due to inflation. I hope this is clear to you. Now, whenever a question for inflation is there, then first mention its definition, then, if possible, a numerical example, and then you have to show this curve. And after it, please write its explanation in 2 or 3 lines, and then mention the reasons for excess demand and the impact of excess demand. After mentioning these headings, please try to explain it. If the question is of 6 marks and if it is of 3 marks, then just mention the reason simply. Okay, no need to write it in detail. And if the question is only asking for reasons, then please try to explain them in detail. All right. Now the question arises is that what are the measures to correct this excess demand? We had already done these measures when we were doing the banking portion, credit control feature of Reserve Bank of India in the banking chapter, right, in the last unit. So over here we can see that the measures of excess demand are of two types. Some are fiscal measures and some are monetary policies. So monetary policies is what we had already done, but fiscal policy is quite new to you. So fiscal policy is related to government spending and government revenue generation that we will discuss in the next lecture as well. But for now, just remember fiscal policy is a policy related to government expenditure, and government revenue generation. All right. So, as the result of excess demand, because the demand in the economy is higher, aggregate demand, planned aggregate demand is higher, then the planned aggregate supply, what the economy, what the government should do, it should increase its expenditure or it should decrease its expenditure. Yes, it should decrease its expenditure. Why? Because this excess demand is happening due to increase in money supply. And if government will increase its expenditure, then what will happen? There will be more money supply in the economy. So in order to curb the money supply, the government should decrease its expenditure. And then what it should do? It should increase its revenue by imposing new taxes so that the money, the excess money that people have could also be taken away, could be sucked. All right, and the situation can be brought to a balanced level. And then there should be reduction in deficit financing. The government should not print more and more notes because it will also create the problem of excess demand. So these are the things which government can do at its level through the measures of fiscal policy. Now let's talk about monetary policy. So in the banking chapter we discussed about quantitative methods and qualitative methods, right? So there we did various methods, so like bank rate, etc. So there should be increase in bank rate, right? Sale of security should be there. There should be increase in cash reserve ratio. There should be increase in marginal requirement. There should be advice to discourage lending, and credit rationing under selective credit control should be there. So, if this is still not clear to you, the monetary policies, then please refer to that video because over there we discussed about it in very detail. I'll discuss about this for excess demand as well as deficient demand together at the end of this video as well, right? So, for now, just remember that fiscal policy is clear to you, and monetary policies are used to correct excess demand. And I'll be talking about monetary policy at the end of this lecture, where we will talk about excess demand and deficient demand simultaneously. So now what is deficient demand or deflation? Deflation is just opposite of inflation, right? So deficient demand means when the planned aggregate demand is less than the planned aggregate supply of the economy at full employment level of output, then there exists a gap between planned aggregate demand and planned aggregate supply, and this gap is termed as deflationary gap. All right, so mention all the key points while writing your answer. So through the help of curve you can see over here that this is the full employment equilibrium, this E is full employment equilibrium, right? And after that your curve will be a straight line showing that it is perfectly inelastic. It cannot, the economy cannot increase its supply after this point as resources are fully utilized. All right, but actually the economy is functioning at this level at this point, okay, during your deflation, because your aggregate demand is less, okay, aggregate demand is less than the aggregate supply. All right, aggregate supply in the economy is more. Over here you can see it is at E, aggregate supply is at point E, but aggregate demand in the economy is at point E1, right? So this gap, that is between aggregate demand and aggregate supply, is termed as a deflationary gap or deflation. Now the question arises is why does this deflation happens? See, it happens due to several reasons, and one very important reason is reduction in government expenditure. Whenever government reduces its expenditure, people have less money supply with them. So as a result of which, their aggregate demand become less than the aggregate supply of the economy. So deflation occur. Then reduction in money supply is another reason. People don't have money in the economy. Okay, that's why the aggregate supply is greater and the aggregate demand is less. Then fall in autonomous investment, rise in import. If import will rise, what will happen automatically? Here, fall in autonomous investment tells you the backward action of investment multiplier. That due to fall in investment, what is happening? Income is also falling. As a result of which, consumption is also falling. So your aggregate supply is also falling. That's why it is less than aggregate demand. And rise in imports tells us that we are buying more from the foreign country, so our money is going more to the foreign nation. That's why the money available in our country is less, right? Due to increase in imports, right? Due to rise in import, what happens? The money supply in the economy get reduced because we are giving that money to the other nation, as we are buying more goods from that nation, right? And then fall in exports, we are not exporting anything, so we are not earning any money, hence there is deficient demand, there is no money in the economy, okay, less money supply in the economy. Then increase in taxes, when government increases taxes, then also people are left with less money, as a result of which there is deficient demand. All right, so I hope these reasons are clear to you. Now let's see that what are the impacts of deficient demand. So deficient demand causes general price level to fall because people are not buying the goods. Aggregate supply in the economy is at a higher level than the aggregate demand, okay. People are not demanding anything, but supply is very high, so the supply and demand adjust, right, in order to bring a balance. So the price of goods and services in the economy get reduced so that people can buy it. All right, so there is a fall in general price level during deflation. There is increase in inventory stock. Now what is inventory stock? So here spelling is quite wrong, it will be VE. All right, so there will be increase in inventory stock. Now what does inventory stock means? It means that the godowns of people will fill because the supply is greater and the demand for that product is not there in the economy, hence there will be increase in inventory stock. And then there will be involuntary unemployment. In the beginning I told you that what is involuntary unemployment? When people have the skills to do that work and they want to do that work at the going wage rate, but they don't find the work. All right, so deficient demand causes involuntary unemployment in the economy, right? Because supply for the goods and services is not there in the economy, right? Demand for goods and services is not there in the economy. That's why aggregate supply is greater than the aggregate demand. Now you can see over here the measures to correct deficient demand. Similarly, we have fiscal policy and monetary policy for correcting it as well. As fiscal policy, there should be increase in government spending. Increase in government spending will increase the income, which in turn will increase the aggregate demand. Okay, and decrease in taxes should be there so that money supply in the economy could increase, right, to correct the situation of deficient demand. Then in monetary policy, similarly, we have quantitative method and qualitative method, right? That we are already done with in the banking section. But let's discuss these monetary policy for both excess demand and deficient demand at one more time, okay, for one more time, because they are very important and they are repeatedly asked as a part of this chapter as well as the part of money and banking, right? So from that video, please watch it again if you don't know about these things, right? Because over here I'm just telling you in short. So bank rate is a rate at which the RBI provides loan to commercial banks. All right, so during excess demand, what will happen? There will be rise in bank rate. Okay, why there will be rise in bank rate? So that the commercial bank could have less money, they will take less loan, as a result of which what will happen? They will also increase the rate of interest on the loans that they grant, because central bank is increasing the rate of interest on the loan that they take. Okay, that's why during excess demand, there is a rise in bank rate. During deficient demand, what happened? Bank rate is reduced so that commercial banks could be encouraged to take more loans with and they will be motivated to give loans at lower interest rate to public, and money supply could in turn increase. Then next is repo rate. You know that repo rate is just same as bank rate is, right? The only difference is that bank rate is for long period without any security, whereas repo rate is for a short period and there should be some security for it. So In case of excess demand, repo rate will rise, and deficient demand, in case of deficient demand, there will be reduction in repo rate. Then reverse repo rate means, like we deposit our money with banks, in the same way commercial banks also deposit their money with the central bank, and the rate of interest that central bank provides on such deposit is called reverse repo rate. So during excess demand, reverse repo rate will be increased, so that commercial banks could be motivated to keep their cash with the central bank. All right, that's why after this they will be left with very less money for giving as loan. Okay, so the money supply in the economy will come down, and in situation of deficient demand, this reverse repo rate is reduced. All right, so that the banks could give loan, more and more loan, to the public. Then open market operation, you all know, buying and selling government securities in open market. So during excess demand, there will be sale of government security, and during deficient demand, there will be purchase of government security. Right? During excess demand, by selling government securities, what they will do, they will give money to they will take money from commercial bank in return of securities. And during deficient demand, by purchase of government securities, they will give money to the commercial banks. Then cash reserve ratio, you know, the ratio that they have to maintain, commercial banks have to maintain with the central bank. It will increase during excess demand, and it will reduce during deficient demand, right? And then SLR will also increase during excess demand, and it will reduce during deficient demand. After that, marginal requirement will increase during excess demand, and it will decrease during deficient demand. Then what the next is rationing of credit. So during excess demand, more loans have to pay higher interest, right? So what will happen? Rationing of credit will be more or less during excess demand. It will be more, right? It will be more because they have to pay higher interest. So they will not ration credit. They will instead charge more interest rate on the loans that are taken during excess demand. Hence, during excess demand, rationing of credit will be less. They will not ration it. Okay, they will charge higher interest rate. And during deficient demand, more loans have to pay lower interest rate, so the credits will be rationed during the time of deficient demand. So remember that rationing of credit is lowered down during excess demand, and it is increased during deficient demand. Then moral Suzanne, you know that it is request. So during excess demand, request is made to reduce credit, and during deficient demand, request is made to increase credit. And then finally, we have regulation of consumer credit. So during excess demand, what happened there is, they increases the cash balance to the consumers has to pay higher portion. All right, and during deficient demand, they reduces the portion of cash that the consumers has to pay, because they know already the economy has less money supply. I hope all these are clear to you. If still not, if still these monetary policies are not clear to you, then I'll put the link of that video in the description. Please watch it, because there we discussed everything in a very detailed way. That's why over here I have shown everything to you in a fluent manner, right? Because I hope that you had already watched that video. If not, then please go and watch that first, right? So that's all for this video, right? This video is extremely important because a question for 6 mark will surely come from this video. I can give you this in written, right? It will for sure come. So please be prepared with it. It can come like the difference between excess demand and deficient demand, or it can be excess demand or deficient demand separately, or there is a possibility that the question can come in the form of these measures, and the monetary measures are asked very, very, very much, right? So these are extremely important. Study them very well, right? So over here you can see we are done with everything of this unit. First we did aggregate demand and its component. I told you that what aggregate demand it is and what are its component, that is total consumption and total investment. And then we did aggregate supply also, although that is not there in your syllabus, but for understanding equilibrium it was very much important. That's why I talked about that also in detail. After that, we did propensity to consume, propensity to save, right? We also did equilibrium, right, by both the methods, aggregate demand and aggregate supply, one approach, and the other approach that was investment and saving approach as well, right? We did both the approaches. After that, we did investment multiplier and its mechanism. I told you the working of investment multiplier. Then I told you the meaning of full employment, involuntary unemployment, problem of excess demand, deficient demand, and the measures to correct them. Okay, two measures were shown over here: changes in government spending, taxes, and money supply. So we did everything. Over here, you can see that the syllabus was very short, but whatever I taught you was in depth. All right, it covered almost all the things that are even not there in your book, but they are extremely important to write good answers. Okay, because I want you all to score good marks. That's why I'm teaching you in a way so that you all can score 100 of 100. So please study it very carefully. I'm assuring you that if you will study all these things carefully, you will be scoring more than 95 marks. I'm sure for that. All right. And if you will do everything by your heart, you can also score over 100. You can also score 100 of 100 also, right? So do everything religiously. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you want, if you are liking these videos, then please comment down below so that I can make other lectures for you.